Hey, Sherpa leaders. We are here with Ronnie De Leon today, and we are talking about data. It's
Yes.
actually the best and it's wonderful. And we have something incredible to show you at the end of this because it takes data and makes it way less awful to gather and use and pull and all of that. That'll be a lot of fun. But more importantly, what we want to talk about today is why it's so important to have the right numbers, because every single person is part of those numbers and every single person matters enough to track them in a number, but also go beyond that because we want all of our numbers to be actionable. If we can't do stuff with the data we gather, then we're just patting ourselves on the back or realizing how bad we are at stuff. But no matter what the data is telling us, it has to be actionable. And Ronnie is an expert at this because of what they've created at their church and are now offering to other churches, but also just because she's been leading the way in the different ministry positions she's been in, figuring out how to gather that data. And it's something that Greg and I care a lot about too, but both of us, I think personally kind of hate in general, but do because we know it's important. Neither of us are like numbers people, but it matters to us. But Ronnie's really both, and she's paved the way
Yeah.
in this, and it's excellent. So we're going to talk all about why data and numbers help us close the back door of the church. First of all, let me introduce you to her. Ronnie is Buckeye with a business degree, and she spent her whole 20s decade as a missionary. She's been leading ministry throughout all 7 countries in Central America. Is that it?
hmm
For a major denomination, all of that. So she got a lot of crazy cool experience. Met and married her husband in Guatemala, moved back to the States. We're at, I think, a 3,500 person church, right? Where you were running connections. And that's where you first got introduced to Greg and all of that assimilation stuff. And now she's on the executive team of that church, moved past assimilation and connections. And she is provided leadership to central ministries, strategic initiatives, and then she also leads the team that created Path, which is the engagement software that we're going to talk about. If you hear engagement software and you're excited, then you're going to stay excited. If you hear engagement software and your eyes glaze over, stay tuned because it's not like that.
Yeah.
It's so cool and
Stay
fun.
tuned, Sherpas, because she is one of us. She is a
Yes,
Sherpa
100%.
totally. And so everything that she's created to serve us is from that mindset. So I'm just
It's
super
really
excited.
true. It's an incredible partnership there, and this is going to, I think, no matter what, whether you end up using Path or if you just do all of these things, like this conversation is going to enable and support and empower all of the things we're going after as a tribe. And so I'm really
hmm
excited about that. But
Yeah.
before we jump in, let's just talk about like the elephant in the room, because I know that people, some are so excited about this and they're like, finally we're talking about the numbers. And other people are like, they're not listening anymore because they already turned it off. But if they're not, we still have them. Those like the data geeks who understand the importance, they're great, but also people aren't won over. So give us your pitch. Like we always got to start here. Give us your pitch on why you think these numbers matter so much, and give it like your most impassioned shot, because we got to always start there.
Well, I am really passionate about this topic. And to be honest, Tommy, it all boils down to this one statement. We believe with our whole heart at Path that every data point represents a soul. And when you approach data that way and you really believe that, you want to take everything that you have. You know, a lot of churches have a church management software, they've got mountains and mountains of data. But it's difficult to make it actionable based on how many church management softwares are put together. They're telling you how many people are in a thing, but it takes a lot of time and effort to run the right reports, to understand the data. It's not very efficient. It's not holistic. You know, anybody who has a church management software and you're wanting to chase people, you have taken the time to go to an individual profile and scroll for like 20 minutes through each individual activity or thing that that person has attended or checked in at. And really, at the end of those 20 minutes, you barely feel like you have much better of a picture of what their holistic engagement looks like. And so I've been there. I've been in those shoes. I've been the person asking, why are we taking all of this data? Why are we taking attendance? Why are we having people check in when it's actually doesn't feel like
It's
it
not helping us. Yeah.
enables and empowers me,
Yeah.
to go chase people. And so our mission at Path is to make that data actionable and help you shepherd and celebrate the people in your church as you work to close the back door.
Yeah. I think that's huge because the two traps really end up being that it's all numbers, and those are really important. I'm all about just numbers because we can't make decisions based on that one thing that one guy said when he left the church. That's not data that you act on. That's data that you're interested in and go like, which way is the wind going? But the numbers are how we do make decisions in so many ways. But if the numbers aren't attached to real people, then we can't. You said it. You said chase the people, and that was huge. That's the thing that matters. And if it's just numbers, you can't chase people. And if it's just profiles with data on it, it's, yeah, you're right. 5 minutes, 10 minutes of synthesizing information and then asking 5 staff members and like, hey, have you seen so-and-so lately? Hey, but
Yep.
what do you think they like their group? It's all of that. And it's too much work and it's too hard.
And let me, most of us, we don't get into a car and drive it because we love staring at the dashboard. We don't. But
Unless
when we're
it's a
driving
Tesla,
a car,
but yeah.
we always look at the dashboard to see how much gas we have left, to see
Uh-huh.
what speed we're traveling at, so that we're not going to get a ticket. And and you ignore those dashboards and that data at your own peril.
Shoot, that's a really good metaphor.
It really
Just
is.
out of nowhere. That was just now. I really like that. We're going to use that.
Yeah.
That's really good. So yes, all of that is true. Data is driving our decisions and we can chase the people. But what is it like when you think of the problems that we encounter in ministry? What do you think that Path can do for people? And what do you think these numbers can do for people? Like what pain is it going to relieve? Like we got to make it feel tangible and exciting. So why is it worth all of this work? And is it a bunch of work? Like tell us a little bit of the pathway forward for how do we do something about this and change it actually?
Yeah, well, let me start by sharing what Path is. So, Path is a software that's an add on to your church management software. So, you already have all of this data. Path, you give us permission, we plug into that, and we make all of your data actionable and just really clear, user friendly reports. So, we're taking that mountains of data and making it actionable. The pain pressures that we're alleviating is, again, the efficiency piece of that. We don't want you to spend time chasing reports, chase people. Shepherd and celebrate people as they engage and disengage from your church. So that holistic view that Path provides is also something that's really unique and important. So it's a customizable program. You tell us what are the programs and activities that each age group in your church should be attending. And in a really quick snapshot view, you're able to see both long-term and short-term engagement in those identified programs and activities. And a couple of my favorite reports, one that will apply to the people watching this, our Sherpa community, right? We're doing connections details reporting. So we're looking at connection statistics in just a couple of clicks. I used to have to run literally 16 different reports to just get the data of who went to our on-ramps, who went to that one place, who got into the process to get the 2 placements, right? I know the 4 Ps. Like we practice that at our church, but the connections details, sharing the statistics, it was difficult. We're pulling so many reports. And so in a few clicks of a button, I'm able to see who went to the place, if they've gotten placed or not after they stopped at the place where we've pointed them towards. And instead of chasing these reports, instead of spending my time doing that, in a couple of clicks, I've got a list of names of people who are not currently connected, and I'm able to make those phone calls today, right now, in just a few clicks. Another report that is really helpful is I shared with you earlier that we're looking at a long-term and a short-term trend, a measure for individuals as they engage and disengage. That short-term trend is really unique because what we're looking at is somebody's personal participation pattern in an activity or program. And so it's giving us real-time data as it updates from the data in your church management software. It's putting that information into Path that's flagging people saying, hey, their personal participation pattern in these programs and activities that you've said is important has changed. It's going down. Call them, reach out to them,
More
what's
like
going
an
on
early
with
warning
them.
sign, not,
Yeah.
hey, by the way, somebody left 4 months ago.
Yes,
and no
exactly.
One
You're
noticed.
knowing,
Yeah.
yes, you're knowing in real time and able to follow up in real time in ways that matter. You know, when somebody disengages from the activities and programs of your church, there's an opportunity for care there. There's an opportunity for shepherding there many, many times. You know, people that they have doubts in their faith. they're struggling with depression, they're going through a divorce, there's some sort of economic duress, that we as the church should follow up, ask them how they're doing, see what's going on in their life, and have the opportunity to address those things. Once churches get to a certain size, it's hard, it's unfortunate, but people do fall through the cracks. I imagine there are lots of people who have experienced this, and it breaks my heart. It happened to me just a couple of months ago. You're at the grocery store and you see somebody who goes to your church, and you start chatting with them only to find out that they don't go to your church anymore. And nobody knew, and nobody reached out, and now they're hurt or upset by it. You've got all that data. Why aren't we using it? Why didn't we know that they were disengaging? And so Path, again, just puts that in a really user-friendly report that you can see who's starting to disengage, so that you can follow up, care for, and shepherd them as they take those steps.
What's so interesting is that disengagement, or that moment where they start to drift, instead of seeing that as a problem, what if we could see it as an opportunity? Because the opportunity is not just even to solve it because you needed to stay fully engaged at all times, right? That's not real life. People go through that ebb and flow, and they go through that drift. And what's more important, what shows the love of God and the security of the family of God more, that when I test it, when I test my belonging and start to drift and go like, is anybody going to notice? We go, yes, we noticed. We're right
And
here. That's
I would
huge.
I would go a step farther. I love how you said, what if we saw it as a flag to a problem, or didn't see it as that, but saw it as an opportunity? Well, once we realize it's an opportunity, what if then it became a focus? Like, in other words, it's my job description not to, oh, there's a flag, maybe when there is a flag, or there's a neat opportunity. No, this is what I do Monday through Friday.
This is
Is
what we
that
do.
these indicators that, these indicators show opportunities, and that's what I do. That's what's driving our teams and their activity is the data, not a side dish check here and there. No,
Yeah, when we have some
literally
downtime, right.
our ministry plans and goals are set by the data. Our weekly activity is set by the data,
Yes.
not because we're numbers driven. We're not getting in the car because we love the dashboard. We're getting in our car because it's going somewhere.
Yep.
And the only way to get there is to look at the dashboard. If not, you're just busy working.
Yes.
You're not a Sherpa leading people to the summit. You're just sitting around the campfire and making s'mores.
It's like if you were a Sherpa and one of the people in your crew was like, I'm just gonna, at a bajillion feet, whatever, I don't know how tall Everest is, 27,000 miles.
1,000 feet.
But they're up there and they're about to die, and they sit down, they're like, I just gotta rest. And they're like, no, you're gonna freeze to death in about 4 minutes. What do you do with that person? You go, well, you know what? Shoot, I got a lot of meetings this week.
Guys,
but I'm going to check in on you next week, or call me if you're what is like, okay, yeah, I'll call you if I have any troubles. No. We take the burden. We take the administrative burden on ourselves. We take the all of those burdens on ourselves, and we go to them. And that's how we prove the love of God.
It's almost like a biblical principle in the book of Matthew,
yeah.
That the shepherd,
leave the 99,
to chase the one. And that's really what we want you to be able to do. I love what Greg was highlighting there with, this isn't something we do occasionally, like build this in, figure out how to build this into your work rhythms. And a lot of the churches that we partner with as Path, I'm telling you, there are staff members at multiple churches that have Path up in the background all day, every day. Yeah. Your connections and assimilation people, they're like waiting for that flag to drop off. They're like, they went to their group again, that flag, they're in and involved and connected. And they're on that list of people. They know those people. I'm telling you, it's in their background all the time. Or, middle school pastors that are looking at the absentee report or a downward trend report, the ones that I was telling you, their personal pattern has changed, and reaching out to those middle school kids weekly, that information is there and it's in front of you, and they see the kids that they need to reach out to and be like, hey, we missed you. We noticed you weren't here. We want you to come back. Here's the awesome thing we're doing next weekend. We hope to see you there.
That would Path for middle school and high schoolers would be worth twice as much as whatever you charge, which I don't actually know. But the point of nobody sees these kids ever. And so what if the moment they were gone for 2 weeks, we didn't go, oh, I hope my leader, my overtaxed, overworked, has 3 kids of their own and has a full-time job leader, let's hope that they remember to that they didn't see somebody for 2 weeks. But
Mhm.
remembering that you didn't see somebody is famously difficult, right? Remembering something that happened, a lot easier, but remembering
Yeah.
absence is really challenging. And so what if we then didn't do the work but enabled the work, right? We empowered the saints to do the ministry. We equipped the saints for ministry, and we just reached out to leaders and said, "Hey, drifter alert." And they were like, "Oh, perfect. That kid has been going through a really hard time. Their parents just got divorced. I'm going to take them out to ice cream." And you're like, life changing
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
Data,
moment
And
that
let's
they
be
need it.
honest, we're all just a little bit older, middle schoolers and high schoolers, that our adults need that
That's so
too.
true.
Our
Yeah,
adults are
exactly.
longing to belong,
Yeah,
so it
yeah.
really matters.
And we have so much
yeah,
data for students
data
though too.
helps you
It's so
see.
easy. Yeah,
Data helps you see,
yeah,
Yeah.
and it helps you see the right things. And data doesn't just drive action; it drives the right action.
mm-hmm.
And that's what we're missing. Is I think in our churches we're people of action. We're people of activity, but it's not always the right activity. It's not always the most strategic activity, and in my opinion, it's not the most spirit directed activity, because the heart of God sees this
Yeah,
and sees
Hmm.
these stories.
yeah,
And sometimes we're just distracted by our activity,
yeah.
but
Hmm.
So true.
data clarifies that.
So, Ronnie, when you like, how much extra work is the setup, the migration? Is there a migration? Obviously, I don't think there is, but like, why is this? Why is this an easy yes in terms of like, is this a whole thing you got to decide to do for 3 months to really crush it, the setup and all that? If you have the data already, because after this, I want to talk about what if you're not a data church yet at all, because that's a different thing, right? And engagement software can't help with bad practices. Obviously, we need to
Hmm.
start there. But if you've got the information and you're the one wasting all that time in reports and all of that, what's the investment level in terms of time and effort and buy-in from your team to get set up?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We actually have a really simple onboarding process. So, like you said, we're already gathering that data in our church management software. So, what we do from there is churches give us information. I'm going to get nerdy here through an API. So, we pull some of that data through an API, and you will tell us exactly what to do with that data. It's like a 40-question form that somebody on your staff is going to fill out and tell us these are our adults and these are the things we want them involved in and at what level.
Which
These
they
are our kids.
probably already have answers to because they know all
Yeah.
those things. They've just never plugged it into a software.
Yes.
Right.
We found that 40-question form really takes churches, depending on how familiar they are with their data setup, somewhere between 15 and 30 minutes. It doesn't take very long.
Yeah.
Our team takes on the burden then of sorting through the data based on the answers that you give for those 40 questions. And typically, depending on the response time of the church and how many churches we're onboarding at a time, it takes 2 to 3 weeks to get a church up fully in, trained, and using Path to begin chasing people, shepherding and celebrating them.
Well, I'd imagine that training is not difficult because also like when you log into Path, I mean, I've been through the demo and I've seen it all in action, and you gave me the like extended. I asked a bunch of nitpicky, rude
It
questions,
was
even of
fun.
like, what can it do this and blah blah, because I really wanted to make sure it's like everything I would have wanted,
Mm-hmm.
and it is. But it's like you don't have to translate anything. You don't have to interpret anything. If you see yellow, it's a flag. If you see red, something's bad. That's really
Mm-hmm.
straightforward. I mean, that's so helpful. And there's even like their engagement's going up or down. I mean, there's arrows.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful
Yeah,
because it's built for people, not for, robots, basically. And that's what's
that's
so
right.
helpful about it. So
Yeah.
that training,
It's
I'm sure, is just like showing people around and then they
it
get to learn
is
on the job.
it's not my favorite statistic about Path, but I'll share with you. There are 4 short video trainings, and we often lose people after the second one because the system is so easy to use and they're just ready to start making phone calls and sending text messages.
That's really funny. I like that. We can't get people to finish the training because they're so eager to just start using it. They don't need the training.
It's proven true across many, many church partners that
That's
we have.
excellent. I love that problem. Well, that's really exciting. So, tell us though about your experience, and I've got some things here too that I'd love to talk about. But what if you're not a data church? What if you want to be? Because you're still listening to this conversation, so it's like, yeah, you probably want to be, but you can't get other people on board in the church. You don't know what numbers to pull. Everybody, you're not the groups person, and the groups person's like, we can't take attendance, so that would be asking too much. And there are people from 4 years ago on volunteer teams still. What if you're that kind of church? Where do you start, and how do you start changing that culture so that Path's worth something, right?
Yeah.
Or anything's worth something, right? Whether or not you use a cool software, we need the data because we can get the other information some other ways too. Or if you're not on a platform that you guys are partnered with yet, whatever it is, how do you start the data culture if it's not started yet?
It's a great question. And in my experience, the most important piece of this, or one of two probably, is leading with the why, leading with the vision. When you sit down with somebody and say, hey, we really believe that every data point represents a soul. Every time you take attendance, every time you check in, it helps us really understand how we're doing, how people are doing, and how we're doing it, stewarding the flock that God entrusted to us. And so, we also have a saying on every single report in Path. The quick way of saying it is that every data point represents a soul. But I love this build out of it. And it's at the top of every report in Path because it's our heart. It's what drives us. Every number has a name. Every name has a story. And every story is for God's glory. And so if you lead with the why, when you're sitting across a table from another staff member or a group leader that's a volunteer, and you make it easy for them, getting email reminders. A lot of these systems will send email reminders. So your staff or your group leaders can literally click the email, check the boxes of who was there, and hit enter. And when they understand the why of that, the heart of that, the win to having that data,
Mm-hmm.
it really all of a sudden feels less like an administrative burden, and it feels like they're partnering with you in the mission of helping people meet,
Yeah.
follow, and share Jesus. So I think leading with the why is really important, and your leadership really needs to be bought into this. This is something that whether it's your lead pastor, your campus pastor, your executive pastor, there really needs to be somebody at the top who's helping drive the culture. It matters, and just keeping that vision in front of you, and helping your staff prioritizing it and helping them understand why we're prioritizing it. I think between those two pieces, they're necessary to
Mm-hmm.
really make this win at a church.
Mm-hmm. The thing that changed it
I,
for us was really separating the expert and the champion. That person
Mm,
in leadership who is like all in. That for a while was me. I was high enough up that it mattered, and I could get some people under. But if I was kind of punching horizontally, I'm like, no, you got to do this thing. Trust me, and be like, that's just an argument now. And it's good. We're good at arguing. Like we were an arguing kind of staff. Like argue for the glory of God. We want to be really good at stuff. That was the point. But I didn't have any. I had influence there, but I didn't have any authority. And also, I was the expert. And it was funny because I think my whole team for a long time thought like, you're just a numbers guy. I'm like, I'm literally not. I really hate this, but I really love the outcome. And that was
that's
the
right.
thing. Like what I'll be able to accomplish though, it wasn't even just that it mattered in the long run or for eternity. Obviously, that's hugely important. Not saying that, but the point really was like, I'm better at my job with all the information. I have better conversations with people. I can spend less time doing unimportant things, more time doing important things. That was so helpful. And I can make my group
Hmm.
leaders better if they actually give me a little bit of information, and they like that. They like being better group leaders. But at the same time, I couldn't punch horizontally. And so as soon as I convinced really my lead pastor, who is the least not data minded because he knows it matters too, but the least like detail oriented, like good at spreadsheets. Like he's just not that person at all. Everybody knows you don't put Mike in front of a spreadsheet because then the spreadsheet will break somehow. And
But he
that's
could carry
fine.
the vision.
But he carried the vision, and he would
Yeah.
then just say, do whatever Tommy says. And
and you know,
that was perfect because then I could just go, okay, here we go. Here's what we do. And I would tie it all to vision still, but he was the one with the authority, and he didn't have to carry any of the weight of it. He never decided on a single thing that we figured out
Yeah.
data wise, but he led the charge as the champion.
I love that. Deciding who's the expert, who's the champion. That's in a church that may have too much micromanagement. The top becomes the expert, and then the staff is
Yes.
expected to become the champions. Really, the reverse is the sweet spot. They're the
Yes.
champions, leaning on the expertise of those on the ground. That's the strategic move. But I love what you said, Ronnie, about the why, because vision wraps around the answer to the why question. And I would say, in a real macro view about why path is so important and data is so important, that we've been saying for a while now that no one has ever made a disciple of an unconnected person. It's
Mm.
never happened. Therefore, connection precedes discipleship.
Mm-hmm.
And if our mission is to make disciples, we cannot make them unless they are connected. They cannot be connected unless we have a connection pathway, a very defined way of connecting them. And you cannot operate a connection pathway unless you have data. You don't know who you're connecting. You don't know if they're connecting. You
Mm-hmm.
don't know when they're connecting. You don't know if they've disconnected. So it is, I want to connect the dots of our mission of making disciples to having something like Path that gives us the
Mm-hmm.
data so that we do it right, do it well, and do it with real people with real stories.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's so true. So, Ronnie, how does somebody get started? Who do you partner with right now as Path? I mean, you guys, just to make this clear too, and why you're so cool, and how this all happened. And you said like God just orchestrated this story, and you're still a little blown away because you guys spun this up locally for yourselves at a church, a whole
Mm-hmm.
engagement
Yeah.
software. And I think from what you said, it was like two guys dedicated a few hundred hours of building on the, and it's not, I mean, it's not easy stuff. It's like a good, solid, complicated on the back end, simple on the user end, but it's a highly complicated software on the back end. And you just spun it up locally and now are able to equip other churches to use it as well, which is like,
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
you built it on the ground and not in a tower, and I think that's why it's so useful to our
Yeah.
listeners, to
Well,
our
yeah,
churches.
it connects so well because you built it as ministry people, and that's huge,
Mm-hmm.
not the bunch of
Yeah.
suits. So, I think that's amazing. But how does somebody get started? What's the process look like? And yeah, like where do they go from here for a partnership?
Yeah, well, I would love for the Sherpa community to check us out and learn more about us at pathengagement.com/climbing the Himalayas. If your listeners go there, they're going to get a free resource. Something that we haven't touched on yet today, but I think is utterly important to this conversation is that while it's great to have the data and have holistic data, actionable data efficiently, you're only as good as your shepherding skills, right? What
Mm-hmm.
happens when you take
Yeah.
that data and make the phone call or send the text message is absolutely important. And so we want to offer to your Sherpa community a short 2-page resource that we've gotten great feedback on that's just really helpful about shepherding tips and ideas. How do
It's
you
so good.
have Thanks, Greg.
It's got the Greg
How do you
stamp.
have, I love that. I love that. The Greg Star. How do you have the conversation? We were finding that both at our church and other churches that we partner with, people were making phone calls to follow up on the data and they were having the conversation without having the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, soccer, you're busy. Okay. Now we know why you're not here. Thanks. No, that's not a discipleship conversation. Sometimes we have to balance grace and truth in that space and ask them, we've noticed you haven't been around. When you were around, what was the benefit of it? Why were you around? What did you see as valuable when you were participating, when you had your
Mm-hmm.
kids here, when you were in that group? And let them tell you, the importance of that, whether it's the community, the belonging, the parenting support, obviously the spiritual nature of what they get out of coming to church and being involved in the body of Christ. And then somebody actually understanding that that's a great moment to push back a little bit and say, and aren't those things still important? How can I help you get a plan together to get back into these spaces because they matter? because we want you here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, at pathengagement.com/climbing the Himalayas, we're going to have a free resource that's there about shepherding tips and ideas. And then as well, we're going to put a 14-minute demo of Path on that website. It's a really quick run through of every single report that we offer so that people can start understanding what it is. And then from there, of course, if they want more information, there will be instructions there on how to do that as well. But we would love the opportunity to partner with churches as you shepherd and celebrate the people that the Lord has entrusted to you.
So great. I would have been all over this. This is, again, one of two things.
Me too.
There are two technological things that both showed up after I left my position at Mission. And I'm still mad about it. Path's one of them. It would have been a no-brainer. It would have been easy to sell up to my, to my leadership and be like, this is worth it. Just trust me on it. And I love it. I love what you're doing. I think it empowers pastors to be pastors, which is huge. Like, instead of us taking the administrative burden on as pastors, and it's just doing that work for them. So it's serving the church. It's saving churches money, I think, with hours and people lost and just effort spent in bad places that aren't helpful.
Yeah.
It's doing incredible work. And so I'm really thankful for you guys, what you've done, and just how you're serving churches as like thought leaders in this area too, making sure that people matter
Grateful.
by way of making numbers matter. So thank you for all of that.
Yeah, it's truly a privilege.